Hello everybody, my name is Will Walbeoffe and welcome back to another video. In today's video we will be discovering soap making. Cold pressed soap making.
Together, essential oil.
Okay, the best way to learn is to do, and this is a super simple, easy recipe that anyone can follow, and it also includes mainly ingredients that you can find in your home already, so there's no big expenditures. What we're gonna need is some olive oil, coconut oil, some cacao butter, which you may need to get, and then there are 3 essential oils: lemongrass, cedarwood, and lavender. Now, of course, we need the chemical reaction that creates soap, which is done by sodium hydroxide added to water, which creates lye. Now, there's a lot of information I've just dropped there, but don't worry, we'll go through it step by step, and it's gonna be a breeze. You're gonna love it. We're gonna end up with a big kilogram bar of soap. Maybe you've made soap before, maybe this is your first time. A little couple hints, tips and tricks which I've discovered along the way. I started making soap in these kilogram blocks, and I found out pretty quickly that it's prohibitively expensive. Not so much for the oils, but mainly for the natural essential oils. You need 45 milliliters of essential oils for a kilogram of soap. And 45 milliliters of essential oils is pretty expensive, especially if you're buying good quality. So I learned pretty early on that using a little loaf, a little bread loaf like so, is the easiest way to keep the costs down. You divide everything by 3, so you use 1/3 of all the materials, so you're only using 15 milliliters of essential oils instead of 45. Which is a pretty big saving, especially if you're wanting to experiment. Couple safety precautions. Always wear your goggles when dealing with lye, and you should be wearing gloves as well. I've misplaced my gloves at the moment, so don't berate me too much for not wearing them. So I'll now put the recipe up on the screen beside me so you can screenshot this and have it with you. Okay, so let's create the lye to start with. So we're gonna measure out 260 grams of water and then 130 grams of sodium hydroxide. Now, when you're adding the 2 ingredients together, always add the water to the sodium hydroxide. Never the sodium hydroxide into the water, because it can create a very vicious reaction that can, you know, jump up and cause injury. Remember Fight Club, the old kissing on the back of the hand? That is sodium hydroxide. Pretty nasty stuff. So let's create the lye. So 260 grams of water. Now for the sodium hydroxide. Double check the recipe, 130. So let's go. $130. We do this at the very beginning of the process because the chemical reaction that goes on here means it gets extremely hot, so we have to let that cool down whilst we're melting the oils together. So we add the water to the sodium hydroxide. I'm gonna bring this closer. With a wooden spoon, mix as you're going because it will create a hard crust at the bottom of the jug. So adding in the water, make sure we mix it together. I always use the same jug for lye, and I don't use it for anything else. Perfect. Gonna put that over there. I'm gonna open a window. Right, that chemical reaction will be happening. I can already see it steaming up, which is wonderful. We know it's doing its job. That container is now done. The sodium hydroxide can now go back into its safe storage. God, it's brutal stuff. Even with the window and the door open there, you can still feel that, that lye just like, you know, kicking the back of the throat. So that's the first process done. How exciting. Let's get on to the second process. Okay, so the next step in the process is to create our essential oil blend that we'll be adding in. So let's add the lemongrass, 25 ml. Pretty much just the end of the bottle, eh? There is markers on the side there, which are probably not that accurate. Right, now we've got to add 15 of lavender. So I want to get that up to 40 ml. And now we are 5 ml of cedarwood. God, I can already smell that blend working beautifully. Really beautifully. Okie dokie. So there we have our essential oil blend ready. That can go next to the lye, which is cooling down. Okay, for this part, we need our big jug and scale, and we'll be measuring out the materials. So I just use store-bought coconut oil. It works perfectly well, and it's easier for you to go out and get it. So we are 315 grams of coconut oil. So I know it's gonna be a full tub and a bit. We've left the window open now to get the lye out. Can you hear the birds? How amazing. I know. In my distraction of listening to the birds outside, I've gone over. That's fine. That's the joy of this. We can just scoop that out. Oh, this stuff is just the best. Look at that. It's gorgeous. Now, it should smell of chocolate. It's a bit of a mission to break up. You need a knife for it. So I'll get a knife and then start adding it in. 170, okay, so let's cut a bit of that off. Ha! 135. Add that in. Blop. And now it's the olive oil. Probably the easiest one to add in because it's just a simple pour. I've just got, again, store-bought olive oil. It's rather nice quality, but it's, you know, it is off the shelf. All this stuff is readily available. That is the joy of soap making. Right, what do we need? 450 grams of olive oil. Wow, that's a lot, isn't it? 450. There we go. So the next process is we melt this in a pot of water, and then we add the lye to the melted oils, and then we blend them together. Right, let's get these melted and come back and finish off the process. We have the roaming camera now, and I'll show you quickly how we melt the oils. So we get a big pan of water on heat. I put it on medium heat, so you know, number 5 if your heater goes up to 10. And then basically just drop the oils into the pan. Our oils have melted, there they are. So we can take them back over. Okay, so there we have our melted oils. Okay, so the next stage is we add our essential oil mix to our melted oils. Then we add the lye into the fats, and then we stick blend it until we get a nice trace, and then add it to the mold. But first of all, we have to wait for them to get to an appropriate temperature, which is between 80 and 110 Fahrenheit, about 25 and 35 degrees Celsius. And that's for both of the mixes. And that's really important to get a nice even color throughout the soap. So let's wait for this to cool down. Okie dokie, our oils are at an appropriate temperature, which is good. And so is our lye. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add the essential oils into the melted oils. Here we go. You need so much kitchen towel when making soap. It is crazy. Okay, so now we add the lye to the oils, and we trace, we blend. So we don't have to be too careful with this, we just chuck it in. Ooh. Like so. And now we're basically blending until we get a trace, which is, as I said earlier, it's like when you're making a salad dressing and you're mixing olive oil with vinegar, when you get that nice gloopy thickness. That's what we're after. Okay, I've got a bit of a heavy trace now on, you can see. So that's it there. Oh. Right, so what we do now is we make sure we get as much of this in as possible. So get a little spatula and scoop it in, waste not, want not, all that good stuff. Give it a good couple taps to try and get the air out of it, because we don't want air bubbles in the actual soap. Now the trace may be a bit too heavy to get the air bubbles out, but yeah, we'll give it a couple taps anyway. Now we pour. For the fun bit, this is where it all comes together. Now, in honesty, I was aiming for a much thinner trace than that. I think I got a bit distracted by trying to film it and talking to the camera and everything else at the same time. But that's fine, because it's a single color and a single pour soap. It doesn't really matter how thick the trace is. What we're gonna do is level this all off with a good couple of taps. Now, we can design the top of it. So we can use our spatula and just get it nice and level. And you know, you can just do a nice flat top like so, or to make it, you know, identifiably homemade, do a couple peaks and troughs. And now that edge needs a bit more work. Hey presto, we have our soap poured into the mold. Now, if it was winter, I would be putting it in a warm place, but because it's summer and it's 24 degrees in the kitchen right now, there's no real need. And now we wait for 24 hours, and that will become a big block of soap. It is the morning after, and our soap should be ready. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Oh, yes. Oh my God, that smell. Whoa, that's strong. I think I'm gonna sneeze, it's so strong. That is amazing, the freshness of the lemongrass and lavender, and then that really earthy, woody cedar wood that just brings it all down and makes it a little bit heavier, a little bit more complicated, a little bit more interesting. Right, so this is the final stage. All we have to do is take it out, cut it, and let it cure for 2 to 4 weeks. We want to make sure we leave it a good long time to harden up and actually not just fall apart when we take it into the shower. Oh, these silicone molds are so easy. Flop out. So you can see how thick the trace was when I did it. There's gaps and lots of air bubbles where it didn't sit flush. So that's just a case of making sure the trace is a little bit thinner when you pour. There we have our lovely loaf of soap. Nice and easy. That smell is outrageous. So there we have it, 15 bars of soap. Isn't that amazing? I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a little bit more of a long one. It's been quite complicated to film, so please do give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Why not subscribe to the channel? Here we discover everything scent related, including obviously soap making and fragrances and moisturizers. My name is Will Walbeoffe, and I will see you in the next one.